Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is the author of, the Veil Chronicles series, no other than Mr. David Cary.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. David, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Well, my name is David Cary. I am the author of the Veil Chronicles series. It is my first writing series that I have done, or first published work that I have done. And right now, books 1 and 2 are available on Amazon, and I am currently working on the third book of the series, the final book of the series. In fact, I was working on it tonight while we waiting for this interview. So one more book to go of the series, and we will wrap it up, and we'll see what people think. I think people are going to like the conclusion of the series. There may be a chance also that perhaps some of the characters may be seen in other books in the future, but I pretty much plan to wrap it up in with publication of this next book. So that's where we are right now.
Yes, and Mr. David, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering series like this to come. What inspired you to create the Veil Chronicles series, and how did the concept of the saffron veil came about?
So it came about originally. I started this idea probably a few years ago. A few years ago, probably around I'm gonna say between pre 2020. Started working on it, started doing some writing on it, but then just things happened, got busy, just life, and I just kind of just put it off on the shelf. Just kind of put it off on the shelf. Well, this past January, things were kind of going slow for me and at work and stuff, and so I started actually working on a sci-fi series, which I plan on getting back to that, a sci-fi trilogy. And so I was working on that and had all, basically I did three books outlined, and then my wife, who admittedly is not a fan of science fiction, said, well, what about that other book that you're working on? And what about that? And so I basically decided to go, shift gears and go back to the Veil Chronicles started out with some basic ideas, like in book 1, the idea of Maria. Where did Maria came from? So the idea of Maria came from just one day me thinking and just using my imagination. I have a very active imagination, and I thought about, well, what would happen if, let's say, a person left their child, young child, at my doorstep? What would I do? And then it evolved from there, where the child being left, the mother, the reason why the mother left the child there, and then, having on the run from some nefarious people. It just kind of morphed into Marie's shadow, where Maria is on the run from the leader of the Saffron Veil. And so the idea of the Saffron Veil just came from my imagination, and just coming up with a good concept for the book, and also, and quite frankly, just suggestions maybe from AI. Hey, what's a good name for this group? Because I didn't want to copy anybody else's work. At the same time, I wanted something original. And since it's almost impossible to research every book ever written, I find it's useful to ask an AI. Say, okay, here's my idea. Is there another concept out there like this? Because I don't want to copy somebody else's work, because there's so many books out there written. It's almost impossible to know every detail of every book, but I wanted to be as original as much as I could in that.
Mr.
And
David,
then,
how did your background influence the integration of faith-based themes in Maria's Shadow?
well, as a Christian, first of all, now, as a Christian, I set out to write a book, and then that's one thing also that I did not like about some books, because a lot of them are filled with language that is just poor taste, or scenes that are poor taste. So I decided to set out to write a book that was free from graphic violence or graphic language. In fact, it contains purposely no vulgar language at all. Now, there's violence in the book. There is violence. People are killed. People are killed violently, but I avoided using the grotesque, descriptive, graphic descriptions that are used often in today's books and music, or today's, books or movies. I purposely, let that out. So, like, for instance, people die in gunfights. People are killed in or run off the road, and other things terrible happen in the book. In fact, Maria, she finds herself in a place where she is being trafficked and sexually abused. But it's left to the imagination of the individual. It's not. I don't go into the details or describe such scenes graphically. So, as one person said, so that a person, they marvel. They say, I could let my, I would assume they were thinking teenager. I could let my teenager read this book, because again, there is some violence in it. There are some dark themes in it. So I would imagine that a parent would probably maybe restrict it to teenagers, but it's clean. As one person said on review on Amazon, a clean, a well crafted story without sex or violence. And so that was my goal. Now, where some ideas of, for instance, in the Veil Chronicles, the saffron, the main, and I don't want to give too much of the story away, I don't want to ruin it for people, but the saffron veil and the head of the saffron veil, a gentleman by the name of Edward Grayson, has a ledger. Okay, a ledger that he has been collecting for years and years. And what this ledger is, let's just say it is a Epstein list on steroids. He has been collecting, he's been catching people, blackmailing people, and use other means to get them under his thumb, so that when he needs them to do something for him, he can pull out what they did and say, "Hey, I still got this on you," and they comply. And he has this large ledger that he uses against people, and part of that came from that. And I thought of the idea even before knowing about the Epstein list. I thought about the idea when when President Trump was running for office, and that whole deal came out where I think his attorney general had to recuse himself because of the situation, And I just thought, like I said, I was like, man, did they have something against him? And so just use my imagination. I thought, well, maybe someone does have a list. And so I created the ledger, the list, or some people might call it a blacklist, but again, this one person controls it. And so he's using it. And so now the story and unfolds in book one. They're kind of just introduced to Maria, and then by book two, they're kind of on the hunt for the ledger, and then of course in book three is the conclusion of the story. So,
Mr. David, how does faith shape the moral decisions of characters like John Jefferson and Marcus in their fight against corruption?
Now, Jefferson is an interesting character. So John Jefferson, John Jefferson and Marcus Carter had a brief encounter during their service in Afghanistan. Okay, so John Jefferson, if we go to see Marie's shadow, there's a scene where, and it played that it plays out several times where he's remembering the incident, where he's an MP and is tasked with guarding, letting people in through into an area. Well, during one of those times, he doesn't fully check this young child, 7, 8-year-old boy or 9-year-old boy. The child was equipped with an explosive device. He let him through the checkpoint. He went on to explode his device, kill himself, of course. And then, like I said, the book has some dark themes, but again, we try to keep it as clean as possible. Well, during that incident, Marcus Carter is severely wounded, where he loses his leg. So, fast forward, and then Jefferson, right after the incident, when Carter's at Walter Reed recovering, Jefferson tries to go see him and apologize and everything. But the Marcus is hateful. Marcus doesn't want to see him. He's bitter. He's angry. He is just full of rage because he had a promising military career still ahead of him, and now he's lost his leg. And there's this guy, and he wants nothing to do with John Jefferson. Well, fast forward years later to now, where Jefferson dealing with the investigation into Maria, and now with Maria's young, again, I don't want to get too much away, but young child, Maria had a flash drive with an image of a very important image on it. And so now Jefferson has to consult Marcus Carter, who's now gone on to be an FBI agent, and now he needs his help. And so Jefferson is dreading that meeting. He's dreading that meeting because the last time he saw him, it was like, get out of here. I want nothing to do with you. It was pure hatred. But, so he's dreading that meeting. But then when he meets him, Carter is a totally different man. Carter is a totally different man. Carter, and also we get into, and then we also get the backstory where Carter found his faith with the help of his wife, but Carter has been changed, and changed by the grace of God. And so gone is that bitterness, gone is that anger. He's long forgiven Jefferson. Now Jefferson still carrying around this burden. Jefferson still thinks that Carter blames him and Carter hates him and everything, but he's already forgiven. Well, Jefferson's journey lasts most of the book, but there is a point in the book where all this comes to the forefront, and then and Carter helps him deal with his guilt, helps him to realize that, hey, I'm not holding against you. No, I'm not holding against you. I've forgiven you long ago. But that again, kind of, there's different scenes throughout the book where the depth of Jefferson's guilt and what happened in Afghanistan is played out to where it finally comes to a head when they're down in Mexico. They're down in Mexico trying to find answers, and it finally comes to a head. And there's a scene where which is kind of funny. As a writer, you write these scenes, and then you write them, and then I was really amazed that it was like after I wrote some of these scenes, how emotional I got reading the scene I had just written. It was kind of funny. I was like, wait a minute, I just wrote that scene, or maybe the day before, or whatever. But yet, still going back and reading it is still like, wow, that's so. But there's a scene later on in the book where I guess all that feeling comes to the surface, to where he pours out his heart, and Carter, begins to help him. Of course, the healing process is going to be long because of his experience that PTSD, but the healing process. But at least he realizes that Carter no longer holds that against him.
Mr. David, what are the challenges did you face in writing the Veil Strikes to maintain the momentum from Maria's Shadows?
That's a very good question. I kind of knew where I was going. At the end of the book, again, not to give too much away, a task force started, and I knew that they. No, I'll tell you how I did it. I wanted to design the book. It was this was my theme idea. I wanted a spy book, kind of crafted, a spy thriller book, kind of crafted, and again, using science fiction, in Professor Book 2, using the Empire Strikes Back of Star Wars as not a kind of, I guess proper word, theme. In other words, how it happens in Empire Strikes Back, how now the Empire, after things happens to victim Star Wars, now the Empire is striking back. And so that's the same thing I wanted to have happen in the Veil Strikes. I wanted and so if you read the Veil Strikes, you find the different moves the Saffron Veil makes to crush this. And again, Jefferson and Carter, there's a new task force that is formed at the end of book 1. And so the Veil Strikes is the Saffron Veil striking back and attempting to crush Jefferson and his small group of followers. And so in that, and it's also Jefferson and his people trying to obtain, because there's trying to obtain that ledger. So the ledger comes more to light in book 2. And then they also learn some of the locations of the ledger. And so and then also in book 2, I introduced a new AI system that aids the Jefferson. Because in book 1, we're introduced to Dr. Elena Ruiz, who is a scientist that helps helps the Jefferson and his task force to fight against the Veil. and to keep and to find out what's going on. And so in book 2, she comes up with a new computer system, which was real interesting. The story behind that is very interesting, because I had the idea of creating a advanced computer system, but I'm not a scientist. So I one day had a conversation with the AI Grok, and the one that Elon Musk, puts out there. And it's funny, I say the conversation because I asked her, well, what kind of advanced, and I was thinking that it would say like the, I'm trying to think of the advanced computer systems. My brain's drawing a blank. But anyway, it asked me. It said, "Well, what kind of computer system do you think would be the future?" And I said, "Well, I think that a computer system based upon using light instead of electricity would, and for storage and data transfer, would vastly improve today's computer system." Well, it's funny. It said, "Well,
Mr. David,
yes, sir.
Mr. David, to wrap up our discussion for today, what advice would you give aspiring authors who want to write clean faith-based, clean faith-based thrillers like the Veil Chronicles that is still captivate readers?
One, just determine that you're going to write it, a clean novel. Number one, and a clean novel comes from a clean heart. But that's the first, and again, just come up with a storyline that could be science fiction, could be a thriller that is, and I would say do an outline first. Sit down, outline your story as much as possible. Kind of find out where you want to start and where you want to go. At least have the beginning and the end. Sometimes you have the beginning and the end. It's in the middle that takes the most time to fill in. Because I knew the end. I knew what kind of end I want, I know where I want the Veil Chronicles series to end. But it's the middle. So you have the beginning, it's going to start, the end that you want, but it's that middle part that where you have to fill in. That's probably the most challenging. I would say that's the most challenging in writing. So, and then, you can have your characters put out there. But if a person has faith, they're going to write a faith-based book. Now, I did not overly put in too much, outright, I guess some people call it preachy material, because I wanted people to see, one, that it was, they would like it for its cleanness, its purity, like it for the story, but also kind of realize and make a person think, why, without coming out and saying directly, why did that Carter, why was he able to forgive Jefferson? Why, all these different things, so that people could see the change without saying faith changed him, but obviously something happened in his life that caused him, because bitterness and anger is a powerful thing. I mean, you see people bitter, and you see people every day who are bitter and angry, and it's sometimes it's frightening how angry, you might meet somebody on a road, whatever, road rage, and then you realize and you realize this person's this way all the time. It's just not, they're not just angry at this certain event that's happening in their life. They're just perpetually mad. And so if I can introduce a book that shows how that faith, grace, love, and most importantly, God can change a person's life, well, then I've accomplished something. And so, but as far as other,
Well, Mr. David, thank you for that advice. And can you please invite our listeners to support your series itself?
yes, you can the Veil Chronicles on Amazon, Marie Shadow, Veil Strikes. They're available on Amazon. Give a good review if you like it. I tell you, if you like it, give a good review. If you don't like it, just keep that to yourself.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. David Cary, because if you support him, for sure, more and more and more empowering series like this to come. So, Mr. David, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, sir.
Monica people, see you soon.